Um, I'm thinking about your mom now, and that she
Mhm.
was at your dad's tribute musical memorial, and I wasn't there because I was swimming with whales in French Polynesia. Um,
You had a good
and
excuse.
I, I had an amazing excuse. I had an amazing excuse.
Nobody's mad.
And I remember, just to get a little astrological here, because I think that's a good transition from music to
Mhm,
astrology, from Norman to Christine.
mhm.
Is that week was a super full moon in Scorpio. No, it was Scorpio, so it was the opposite of Scorpio. So it was a super full
Taurus.
moon. It must have been in Taurus that week. So yeah, we were on the lagoons of Maria, paddleboarding under the full moon. It was freaking amazing. And I got out in the water with the mama and the baby humpback whales just at the end of the season, and got to witness those lives, those planetary lives, those amazing uh, animals, relatives, just incredible. Can't wait to do it
Mm,
again.
mm,
But your
mm.
mom was there, and and yet, and she's passed too now. So let's talk about Christine Waddell, and that particular journey for you, and her journey in your life, your mom.
Mm, mm.
And it's so interesting because I know your story so well, that to talk about the deep differences you had with each of your parents in terms of their strategy, your relationship with them, your needs around them, and the
Mhm.
way they each influenced you.
Yeah,
Yeah. Does that work? Is that a starting
yeah,
point? Okay.
it's yeah, profoundly different experience. Um, my mother was a seeker of systems of knowledge. She was looking for nothing less than enlightenment in this life, and also seeking uh, a romantic love that may have, I think maybe even like looking for perfection in these realms. Uh, Maybe because she hoped that God, it's hard to say, but I think maybe she didn't want to keep coming back anymore. The idea of like uh, reincarnated again to keep doing the work. I think she wanted to figure out how to do it so it was done. Talk about a difference, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Steady in another way, but pointed toward um, going all the way to the end and then like completing the journey. And incredible to witness somebody try to do that, and then oftentimes, the grief in it appearing not to work, the relationships that didn't work, the enlightenment that didn't come to pass after nearly 6 months in India, um, following a guru and really hoping to discover incredible grace and beauty with the divine, um, and a whole lot of other uh, journeys to try after that didn't go as far as she had hoped. And that was back in the 70s. So I witnessed my mother's reach for extremes, hoping for really amazing things to happen, and then there was a lot of pain in not being able to attain certain things this time around. For me, emotionally, speaking of differences, is that my mom and I were so enmeshed emotionally, at least in the beginning.
Right.
It probably even inspired some of my desires for my father and I to be closer, because what I knew from being with my mom was it was okay to talk about everything. It was okay to um, dive deep into the processes and the pains and the truths about ourselves, and as we were learning about ourselves. And yeah, so profoundly different people. And my mom's gift to me is that I feel like it's really okay to be the man that I am, the emotional man that I am, and I'm learning more and more that being uh, emotive doesn't equate to being emotionally intelligent or emotionally articulate. And so now that I'm 52, it's been a few years now of really looking at those two things as different. Emotive is fine, but what I really want to do is be more transparent and learn to have the integrity and the accountability around my feelings and what I want from people. Um,
Where does your mom fit into these teachings? I get the kind of open door or the open communication channel and acceptance of self and discovery. I'm really getting some of the, I think you use the word extremes of her intensity of seeking with
mhm,
disappointment, the
mhm,
strong longing. And now you're starting to shift into this conversation around lessons of like your own development. And I'm curious, are these recent lessons as part of her passing? Are these lessons that have always been there in relationship to Christine? Like, how do you, um, yeah, help me locate the transmission, her transmissions before and
mhm,
after her passing.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. The level of acceptance that she was able to pass on to me definitely goes back a long way. Um, she was very good at um, letting me and my sister and her clients and friends know that the ideal is to welcome all of ourselves. All emotions should be valuable, and there aren't any that we should be trying to mask or afraid to give voice to. And certainly, some things can be hard for other people, anger and other things that we express. But she was really good at naming how one would let those, you know, uh, less desirable emotions out. And she would say things like, "You got to get that stuff out. The trick is to not send it at anyone. It's out,
Uh-huh.
not at."
That's good.
So that sense of accountability, these things should be free to move out of you, but you've got to be careful how you do it. So those ideas are it's a good example of the way that she both was showing people how she was learning, what she was learning, and what I could do with it. Um,
I mean, I think it may be helpful here. You got something coming?
no, because I'm oftentimes thinking about your question and how to relate it both to because it's a great question, distinguishment of what kind of things what were my experiences as a kid with her, and then after she passed. thinking a little bit
Yeah.
about that. But it's nice to have you guided a little bit because it's a lot. It's a
Right.
lot. It's very hard for me to tell it as a good, concise story.
Yeah, we don't have to. We don't have to worry about that. But I would say that one thing that might help the listener, the viewer, is a sense that your mom of her life a little bit more, in the sense that she was a pretty remarkable pioneer, in terms of going through the 60s and opening the doorway to spirituality and continually finding the next iteration, the next teaching, the next teacher, the next wisdom to enter into the world. And I think of Robert Bly as actually someone who's in that zone too, who is calling towards a alternative view of culture, an alternative view of possibility. So, and you were, under her guidance, under her watch primarily, as she's, going through these different iterations of teachers, of gurus, of practices, of knowledges, of intelligences,
Hmm.
of healers. And then, at her memorial, it's like all these people show up and are like, your mom was amazing for me. Your mom, guided me. Your mom welcomed things in me I didn't know that needed to be welcomed. So I
Mm-hmm.
think there's a kind of magnificence in that, in even if there's pain and suffering that we all have. I know I have it, um, that your mom had. I just want to appreciate for a minute that facet of her singularity.
It's really nice to hear it from you. Yeah, I think that my mom was maybe what's the word? The epitome of the archetype of the wounded healer.
Uh,
And so I've spent some time talking about my relationship to my mom's wounds because I'm her son and I know her so well in an intimate way that folks that she's helped haven't seen. So it's really nice to have you make me remember the other side because after she passed and leading all the way up to the memorial and then exploding after the memorial was this sense that my mom's life arc was one of, I said seeking, but you're right, it's so much more than that. It was the discovery and then the utilization of the discovery of many systems of knowledge, but also like integrations of different systems of knowledge that certainly helped her, but maybe in this discussion, more importantly, touched the lives of so many other people. And my awareness of that was expanded tenfold when I started to reach out and make connections to folks that I either hadn't talked in a long time or uh, really amazingly, the clients that she had these really profound relationships with, folks who I had never met, obviously, but wanted to be a part of her memorial. So her memorial was composed of friends, family, and her clients. It was an amazing synergy, an amazing mixture, and for me, it's become a community uh, of people that are carrying my mother's story with them, and yeah, I don't know what more to say about it, but you can maybe help me out, guide me
yeah,
back
no, I
on.
can. I'm curious, like, because I was around for this and witnessed it. I mean, one of the things to say here, I guess I'll get there in a minute, uh, is, the encounter with the healer part of your mom through her clients. What did that do for you? Kind of acknowledging that some level your closeness was super powerful and influential, slightly enmeshed. Maybe seriously enmeshed. I don't know. You can talk about that dynamic if you want, but that when you saw the healer side of her as exhibited through the people's lives she's touched, what that did for you in relationship with how you knew your mother as your mother, as a person, as a healer. Yeah.
Mm, mm. I always knew that um, my mom was good at her work. I knew that she really looked at it as something, again, that she could hone and like nearly perfect if she just kept at it and kept learning. Um, I think toward the end of her life, it was nice to have conversations with her where she was able to express to me that she was realizing that there had been a lot of time in her life that she had hoped to be acknowledged for this trailblazing path, because you know, it wasn't going to be seen through the lens of like what schools she went to or what awards she won. It was going to be through the the small singular acknowledgments from one person or the other. And she had reached a point where she was realizing that she could help people of all walks of life. She was getting in touch with much younger clients, and she was finding people who would say, you've helped me so much. I now have this like entire group of people that are all willing to work with you just based on my recommendation. And so, like, here is a whole new set of people all wanting to meet you. So she was having this very profound acknowledgement go on that she had arrived in her practice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really glad that she had that experience. Um, and it's worth also saying that her closest friend knew that she was having the sense that she was maybe closer to the divine and what she had been looking for than ever before in her 70s.
Yeah, that's
And
amazing.
yeah, and good for me to know, because that wasn't something we were talking too much about. She was
Right.
able to talk to her friend uh, about what was happening for her around Amma, especially. But it was all, it was all connected. The thread went back to many people before Amma. I think she felt like she was really landing her connection, uh, and
Yeah.
more and more ready to leave because of that.
Yeah, and let's talk about that leaving process a little bit, because I think it's poignant and I think it's moving. And as I understand it, your mom had a deep reading with Liu Ming.
Mm, that's right.
And yeah, and talk about that and the difference in her choice, her process, how you came to understand her passage in a different way than your father's, if
Well,
that's okay.
yeah, I've often thought about one of the many graces was was how it came to be. I have a lot of gratitude. I don't know that this process would have been so full of creativity and beauty uh, inside the loss if my mother had gone first, um, the way that she did. There was something about having the time and the space to get in touch with my own process around death, my own relationship with that whole year of of my father's passing. 7.5 months later, um, my mom needed to go to the hospital because of chest pain, and at this point, she was in Colorado, uh, having been there just under a year, and she died in the morning, uh, not making it through surgery. Um, so it was really sudden, and I wasn't able to be with her. And I oftentimes think about the great irony of it. Like my father and I we had a lot of time together and not a deep need to talk. And if my mom and I had even had, like, if some archangel had come down and said, "You guys got 2 hours left, that's it. What are you going to do with it?" We'd have talked about everything under the sun and moon. We didn't get to say goodbye, and I didn't get to see her body. I was okay because of my dad. That's the irony. Some part of me just accepted when I flew in to Colorado, hoping to see her, thinking she was going to recover the surgery, and finding out from my sister in the airport that she didn't make it. Something just occurred in that moment. I'm not here to see my mom. I'm here for my sister, and I'm here to like do what I have to do to make everything right. Because my mom left the physical world just as it was. No preparation. I'll be leaving soon. Just there's the apartment, a day in the life, it's all happening, and then poof. The only thing missing is her. To me, there's something quite spiritually perfect about it. It's like she vanished and she died facing the heavens with her heart literally open to the world. For better, for worse, partly the way she lived her life. Where were we?
I think we're just thinking about Christine and, the different views you've had on her and your different levels of understanding who she was, the story of her life, the ending of her life, the symmetry in that from your point of view, maybe some kind of strange beauty
Mm-hmm.
that's part of that.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing that is there for me, and maybe I'm not hearing it right, but I'm also curious about, redefining your relationship with her, from and finding your individuation from her. Having somebody be so positive, involved, 100% behind you, freaking open-minded, the mom that probably everybody talks to, the mom that everybody can really be themselves with, and yet your path in relationship to having a mom who was that mom, who was the one who took you to India, you know, and shared her path with you in a really honest and deep way,
Mm.
even when you were young. And it's almost like the reverse process of your dad in a way, it's like moving towards him, and then finding a way to move into yourself. And I don't know how you would describe it, but I'm just thinking about that contrast of that relationship and the legacy of what the gift, the kind of the mixed gift, the burden of knowing your mom's wound so truly and real, and being
Mm-hmm.
exposed to that, and what kind of honesty that's like, and then what the challenges with that, and the transformation. Okay, now that she's gone, that relationship is going to change too. I'm going to see and I'm going to feel that a different way than I did when she was alive, because that seems to be the process of dying. Things change psychically
Mm-hmm.
for the people who survive.
Yeah, well said. And that's why we're doing this, right? We're talking
That's,
about
yeah.
the wisdom and the gifts that can come from death and the experience of death, and what it's like to lose somebody so important to you. Yeah, something that you said really, it's really got me thinking, how to articulate it all. she was so supportive and so accepting. She was all the friends of my sister and mine. Like that was the mom. Everybody wanted to go be there because all was going to be okay. There was a like real sense that um, they could hang out with a mother figure, an adult, where they felt cool, and they were like, "Wow, she's really cool," and she has so much insight, and we feel so seen. That was the thing. She could really, really give the gift of uh, seeing somebody. But like you said, for me, as the first and only son, sometimes I felt over polished. And uh, not so ironically, probably around the same time that we were talking about some major, major transitions for me and my father, probably around 28 also, was for me the biggest moves away to individualize from to to start kind of unwrapping things I didn't understand about how connected we were, that I really needed to differentiate as the word. And that was hard because that's painful for anybody, uh, any anyone. And we were working that out, I'd say, all the way up until just a few years ago. Um, I'd have moments where I went, "Oh, I think we just reached another point at which we're both able to acknowledge that this feels better, having differentiated, and it opens the possibility in the space between us to actually be a little bit closer." Before, it either didn't feel safe enough or um, like there wasn't enough room to really invite more of each other in. It's like the space was already filled. So, one of the most profound things for me was um, that she asked from me and my sister very different things in life about her death. And what came kind of all of a sudden when she passed, the recognition that those charges were very unique and very different. And with my sister, it was take care of me when I'm at that point that I need care. And for me, it was carry my story, like take care of, be the bearer or the holder of my story.
Mhm.
Both my sister Tay and I, certainly I can say, had some, you know, some awkwardness and some strange feelings about what did that really mean. Um, Taya ended up in Colorado, paving the way for my mom to come there, and sure enough, was ready to do that service, was ready to care, and was already stepping into that role. Um, it wasn't until she passed that I had the realization that her memorial would be her story. And so I had about a week where the only thing I could
Yeah.
do, I mean, I pretty much stopped doing everything else. And with hundreds and hundreds of pictures spread about the entire house, no one could step into certain rooms because I was trying to go through the entire story in photos, which she had amassed a beautiful collection of her life and everybody in it. And then also realized that she was a prolific writer. So I was reading her journals and I was reading uh, all kinds of different things that she
Amazing.
had compiled over decades. And it was magic. It was like every time I had a question about what was the next thing, I had experiences of opening up a folder and finding the information. Sometimes the first opening, the year, the person, the experience, something like that would be right there. It was like she had left out the breadcrumbs for me to follow as I walked this path, trying to be the messenger of her story. She was helping me write it. It was like she was on my shoulder. And that led to, a 9-page biography of my mom's whole arc, to the best of my ability. And, the friends, family, and clients that came, the wonderful thing was that a lot of people left saying that they got what they needed. Some said it was almost like they'd had their last session with her, which was really important because a lot of people were still really in process, and having her go suddenly meant that there was a sense that they didn't finish what they had started. So that meant more to me than, I can articulate. The idea that people felt like there was a sense of completion in the memorial itself that connected to the work that was already underway.
So, in that spirit, would it be okay for you to share maybe a few things about the arc of your mom's life and her story that maybe still speak to you, you're chewing on, or you just like to honor?
Mm. Yeah, sure. The biggest theme was probably belonging. I won't go into a lot of details around like the family of origin, but it was rough. And she ultimately didn't know who her real father was. And miraculously, she did learn somewhere around the age of 32, 33, who that man was. He was already gone. And so 15, 20 years uh, after that knowledge began a very long process of discovery and healing around, um, like a truer identity, based on a person that she couldn't talk to. But she, in so many ways, I think, in meditation and in therapy and in literal, like geographical journeys to places of origin, continued to fill that story out until she, and I know she felt this, until she felt like she had made the ties. And in some instances meant literally challenging lies and challenging misperceptions in other relationships that she had in order to validate that experience so that she could finally say, I belong here.
Love that. That instinctual wisdom is so admirable. Fucking great.
It's what she was trying to help so many other people do,
Of course.
right? Let them
Yeah.
know they belong and show them the
Yeah.
the tools they could use in order to either start that journey or fill that journey out or hopefully complete that journey.
The symmetry of intelligence taking place in the inner world and the outer world is just like, it's amazing. It's always another version, and always amazing, another version of how that conversation is taking place between longing, wounds, healing, change, the world. It's amazing.
Mm, mm. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I don't want to cut it off before it's complete, but that feels like that was one of the pieces that you wanted to speak to about your mom's story.
I feel like we landed somewhere. It feels really good.
Yeah. So what else? What else about your mom's story in addition to her? I want to use the word resuscitation of her sense of belonging in life. through courage and searching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think a little bit about some of the lighter aspects. Um, One of the things I realized gave her the most joy was, in the twilight hour of any given day, being out in the garden when the colors are just, popping. The indigos and the reds and the oranges and the yellows and the purples are just bursting as the sun has gone down enough to really let those colors shine. And she'd be out there, incredible green thumb, turning like a rental property into, uh, a magical garden. Um, about 6 months after she had passed, I, with no thought about it, um, I just realized that I was in my yard having deeper, more profound, more, I would say, just daily experiences of tending my backyard garden. Um,
Yeah.
with my partner, like something that we started ourselves, and it just all of a sudden I just reflected. I was just looking at butterflies and hummingbirds and Mexican sage and yarrow in a different way, and it's happening in my yard. And I thought, wow, I'm discovering what it is that gave her so much peace, despite whatever else was going on. So I'm feeling connected to her through that activity.
Mm.
Yeah.
Super lovely.
Yeah. But then there's something else that I made a choice about,
Okay.
which was my mom. My mom often talked of astrology and showed me books that she had. Uh, Talked about me sometimes. Again, it's this form of polishing where sometimes it was a little hard to hear um, myself through the lens of astrology coming from my mom. But I have to admit that there was always something about what astrology seemed to offer that was pretty attractive to me. There was something about it. It's just my mom passing again, like these guards we were talking about before. All of a sudden, I realized I can have a relationship with my mother on my own terms, and I don't want to guard against any part of her. I love her, and I want her. I want
Oh.
her wisdom and her energy and her deep sense of uh, we can discover so much while we're here. I want to live that way. And so one of the things I decided to do was to decide to be a student of astrology. And so I took all the books that she owned, some of which I was familiar with, but many I don't know that I've ever opened, and start to read them and try to understand what it has to offer, but also what she was using them to seek out.
Yeah, that's right. Astrology.
I'm owning it. You're owning
Yeah,
it.
yeah, right. I know. Listen to the last episode, The Wisdom of Astrology, co-host Tobin Mayell. Listen, I think a good way to play with this would be to talk about how you see your mom through the story of her astrology, and the way you're able to unguarded receive, be in her wisdom fountain of energy that was part of her life story. And now that that's opened and there's no barriers, there's like it's like an intimacy of consent when someone dies is the phrase that's coming up. There's like
Mm,
I'm not gonna have my thing that I have in relationship to you. It's I'm good. We're good. And so when you look at your mom's chart, or you look at the nature of your mom's life and you look at her astrology and you accept this energy, what's new, what's fresh, what inspires you, what invigorates you about both your connection with your mom and the knowledge, if you want to go there.
mm. I think I have to answer the question that's slightly different, but you're still you're still helping me activate some ideas.
Perfect.
Um, one of the things I'm learning to do is compare people's charts. That seemed so far outside my abilities not so long ago. And now I'm becoming more interested in not just like, who am I and who is this person, but can astrology talk a little bit about um, how we relate? What are our challenges? How do we meet those challenges? What gifts do we bring in order to make this relationship work? And I have to say, being 52 and knowing lots of people in my life for so long, I like to use the template of my actual experience, 24 years with you, 40 years with my friend Mike, and my parents all the way back to what seems like the beginning of time, to look at astrology, not, at least for me right now, not as a way to predict anything, but
Right.
to almost use my life experience as a model to confirm if astrology has a lot to offer me. And one of the things that's been really profound is that when I did a comparison of my chart with my mother's, how much it indicated difficulty compared to some other folks who I don't feel nearly as challenged by, and went, wow, that's kind of unexpected. It was unexpected for me. It's not to say that it didn't also show that we could work together well, and that there was, as we talked about before, a lot of sense of like, I see you and I support all that you are. That was in there, but a lot of other places that were um, about challenges, about communication drops, just like no one quite knows what to do now, and anger makes everything feel like it's going to fall apart, and we'll have no other way to go until that energy subsides. So one of the most fascinating things to come out of this for me is that my mom had a very particular way of using a house system in astrology. And I have found a house system that I think might work even better. And I have these moments where I wish she was here so I could show it to her, because one of the things that it does is it shifts a couple of things that I have this feeling if she had seen her chart through that lens, she might have felt a little less doomed sometimes. And that is just, that was a very surprising discovery. The lens that
What would
I've
you
looked
tell
through
her?
with
What would
her.
you show her? Sorry if I'm interrupting.
Mm,
What
no,
what
no.
would you show her that would maybe yeah, what would you like to her have known about how you see her fate and her chart?
I think in its simplicity, just that, okay, this is the irony, that I might have been able to provide her with just one other lens that might have brought some levity to her narrative, her own self narrative. That some of the hardships and some of the challenges were, it seemed through this other lens, so important in the journey toward acceptance and a sense of peace with the divine and a sense of belonging in this dimension. I'm not saying she didn't, and I'm not saying that I'm certainly not being so egotistical as to say that I have a piece of the puzzle that she didn't find. It just was very surprising that as soon as I started to take astrology seriously without my mom here, I started to see things that she hadn't shown me and that I so much wanted to share with her. I can't be too specific, but
Okay.
it's something about maybe releasing the weight of fate.
Yeah, she saw her fate with a certain heaviness to it that you said, well, there's actually a different take on that here too.
Yeah, yeah.
That's cool. I get that. And the other thing I'm getting from just listening to you talk about your mom and the story of her, both the beauty of her path and the hardship of her path and the kind of the difficulty of her path, and then the peace that sounds like she was able to find, is it makes me think about my own suffering and my own hardships, and that, the tale's not told finally.
Mm,
There's
mhm,
still that these things that we go through can take several decades, not just five, not three, not even, some things are 5-year journeys, some things are longer, but maybe certain um, very specific, difficult aspects of being who we are, um, they take longer to come around. They take longer to find their rightness and our understanding and relationship with that. And I think I
mhm,
hear that in your mom's story.
mhm, mhm. There isn't a quick fix. There isn't a simple solution.
Mhm.
It takes arriving over and over again, and we've got to surround ourselves with the chosen family that is there for us as we continue to show up and arrive again and again. Thinking about something that my mom wrote, and I'm not quite sure how quickly I could find it, but if there's a moment for me to look for it and read it to you, I think it's really fitting. She said, "I want to open my arms wide enough to embrace the whole universe, light, lighter still, wanting, needing nothing but to shine, to open my arms so wide, this aching need is unleashed, unfurled, let loose to return to the lonely depths from which it came, never to return. I want to be filled, taken care of, loved."
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I think a lot about the gifts that really gifts of magic that both my parents have left for me. And in this journey, as people should and do, there's been a lot of, I'm sorry. And this must be incredibly rough. And I have to say that I imagined this being incredibly painful to the point of debilitating before it all happened. And the discovery that it can be so profoundly intimate and full of, you know, blossoming discoveries and creativity and community. Um, it was never the pain I thought it would be. It's not even a pain I want to go away. It's something I'm actually very grateful to walk with and let it continue to uh, change me. It's a thing I wish maybe my dad might have discovered, is that the peeling away of the onions is not all it, not all it, yeah, it's not all as scary as maybe it seemed. But I take him with me on this process too. And I hope that both of them are as happy as I imagine them about how things have worked out, because their legacies really are continuing in my life and in other people's lives in really profound ways. They made quite an impact.
Tobin, thank you so much coming on the show today and talking about your late parents, Norman Mayell, Christine Waddell. May they rest in peace. And may that legacy continue to bloom. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Jef.